What we're going to do is use the spectroradiometer and look at the red and blue wavelengths and take a look at that and compare the LumiGrow ES330 against a 400 watt was a metal halide HID.
So here we have our LumiGrow 330 running full power. And let's just get a little explanation from George of what we're seeing here on the screen.
Yeah, we're looking at the photosynthetically active radiation output of our light broken down by wavelength. And I just want to show you bin 2 right here and bin 3. That's blue and red. So we have about 26.5 micromoles of blue. Then that's between the 450 and 480 nanometer wavelengths. And then in bin 3, which is the red, we have about 170 micromoles of red and between 620 and 680 nanometers. Yeah, we've got bin 4 and bin 5, and that is
near infrared?
Near infrared and infrared.
So bin 4 is the near infrared and bin 5 is the infrared.
That's right.
So this is a true depiction of what's going on with the light, wavelength by wavelength, really.
Yeah, and it's relevant because, you know, oftentimes you look in the industry and people talk about lumens. What's the lumen output? Well, that's a totally irrelevant comparison of light, especially when it comes to plants. You know, plants are looking at PAR in specific wavelengths that are matched to their pigments. Chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, phytochrome, so on and so forth.
Right now we're running this Lumitech on the super lumen setting. Of course, we have our spectral radiometer, 32 inches from the lighted source, just as we had on the LumiGrow 330. There's our 400 watt metal halide. This is an Ioportalux metal halide. Look at, we're about 32 inches. Of course, this is our sensor.
Fiber optic.
It's a fiber optic sensor. It's hooked into a very expensive spectroradiometer. And here's the readout. This is live. Now, George, before we were looking at the LumiGrow 330, and of course you're explaining bin 1, bin 2, bin 3, bin 4. Do you mind just doing that again real quick for me?
Sure. Well, each bin represents a different wavelength region, and what we're looking at is bin 2 and bin 3. Bin 2 is the blue, and what we're seeing is that
these numbers are a lot lower than the ones
they're a lot
we were looking at before.
lower. That's right. We're getting about 11.2 micromoles of blue with between 450 and 480 nanometers.
This bin 2, this is the blue nanometers area. This is the blue area,
yeah,
measured in nanometers. And I'm seeing it's about 11 point something. It's just like quite a different world from what we just saw with the LumiGrow 330. What were we putting out with the LumiGrow?
We had 26 micromoles with the LumiGrow.
So this is actually less than half.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we know blue is an important wavelength for you know, vegetative.
Hold on, can we give the viewers at home a real quick depiction of what's really actually happening? So over here we have a 330 watt fixture. Over here we have a fixture that's not at 400 watts, but is super driven on the super lumens, which I'm guessing is about 440. Let's just call it 400, just to give it safety and security there. So at 400 watts, our metal halide, powered by a digital ballast, is half of the amount of blue output from what we were getting with the LumiGrow. That's pretty amazing to me. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's go on to the bin 3, which is the red wavelengths between 620 nanometers and 680 nanometers. Here with this metal halide light, we're getting about 28 micromoles. That's all right, but on the LumiGrow ES330, we're putting out 169 micromoles of red.
My God. That's not even comparable. Of course, we're running a metal halide, so you know this isn't optimized for red.
The spectroradiometer is pulling from the 600 watt high pressure sodium bulb. So again, here in bin 2, we're looking, that's the blue spectrum between 430 and 480. We're getting, rounding up, about 11 micromoles of blue. And then in bin 3, we've got the red spectrum, and that's 620 to 680 nanometers, and we're getting about 88 micromoles.
It's obviously a lot higher than the metal halide that we had in this HID fixture before. Where were we at with the LumiGrow 330, the 330 watt fixture? Now, folks at home, remember this is a 600 watt HPS we're comparing it with, that we're looking at right now. Where was the LumiGrow 330, George?
Yeah, in the blue, the LumiGrow had 26 micromoles, so that's more than double the amount of blue using the LumiGrow enhanced spectrum. And in the red spectrum, the LumiGrow had almost twice that of this 600 watt high pressure sodium. We had about 170 micromoles.
Wow. So the LumiGrow 330 is outperforming in those key nanometer spectrums that we're talking about that gives the true plant response. The LumiGrow is actually beating at only 330 watts this HPS bulb running at 600 watts.